Hello. I want to speak real quickly about uh, this advice that goes around that I'm going to be honest with you because I don't want to say things, I don't want to water down how I feel about this piece of advice that a lot of people like to give because somebody else might take offense to it. I really detest the advice that people have been given ever since this pandemic started. People have been given advice on like stocking up and stuff way before that. I don't have anything against stocking up. I have something against, it's almost like the fear. I get that they want people to take things seriously, but if the world is mental, and most people by now know the world is mental, that means you are a part of the mental world. Why do you have to constantly take somebody else's narrative? So when you have this sense of, and I'm not saying don't prepare. I'm not saying that. Because what basically we have given our power away by living in a world created by somebody else anyway, and by us being indoctrinated into their system when it comes to school and all that stuff, then we help to co-create a world based on a system that they want to control us in. Okay, let me just say that. So I'm not against stocking up, but I say do as much as you can to continue to have time to work on yourself and breaking out of the illusion that was created for you, breaking out of the narrative that they created for you, that we believed in, that we have been indoctrinated in. I would say try to stock up enough to break that spell from over you. Because once you break the spell from over you, it's no need to stock up. And I'm gonna say something right now. And when I take stuff out the Bible, I apply it to whatever I wanted to apply it to. I don't necessarily apply it to whatever the storyline was in that particular scripture. I think about how it works for me, right? And so when the Israelites was leaving Egypt, right? And they went around the same mountain for 40 years. You know that story. But when the Hebrew Israelites was leaving Egypt, their God told them, right? When the manna fell from heaven, God told them, their God, right? Told them, do not take more than what you need. Take just enough for that day. Because each day, God will supply them with what they need. Now, because we're in a situation, because we've given our power away, I'm not against the message of saving up a little bit. But when you say it in a way like it's going to be some gloom and doom and you're going to be destroyed and everything, so you better. I hate it when they say it like it's been a lot of people who supposedly spiritual that said that too. Like, I don't agree with saying it in a way that in that type of urgency where people need to have fear. Because let me tell you why I hate that type of urgency, right? Because what if somebody who's listening to that barely have 50 cents or barely have 2 nickels to rub together? Somebody is listening to that message that barely have 2 nickels to rub together, and I'm saying it. And they listen to a message where they say, you better stock up. But some people barely have 2 nickels to rub together, and you can't judge where they're supposed to be in their life. Because let me tell you something. Maybe that person with 2 nickels to rub together are being taught a lesson. Maybe they're being taught to depend more on the spirit. And so you keep hearing these messages about you better. And meanwhile, this person that can't seem to get $5 in their pocket keep hearing this message, and they got this fear. They keep having this fear that just grows in them each time they hear that stuff. And the fear grows because they can't get the money that these people are telling them to do. They can't get the money. And so the fear grows because they can't get the money to buy their own garden. They can't get the money, like they can get some money for seeds, but then they're barely able to pay rent. And when that happens, people that's indoctrinated under this system who are somewhat spiritual, but not really. Because I'm going to tell you something, to be honestly, and I'm not trying to be funny. I've been in this position. To get truly spiritual, you got to get to a point where money, like you use money, but it's been times when you ain't ever had no money. You trying to figure out how you made it, because you know it's times you ain't have a dime to your name, and somehow you still managed to eat something. Somehow you still managed to have somewhere to live when you know you should have been on the bench somewhere. And to people who've been on the bench, you know, nothing against that either. That's why I hate that message. That's why I hate that message for people. Number one, I work in healthcare. I see people whose life is hanging on the string all the time. They ain't got time for that. They don't have time for that message. They don't. That is not their priority when their life is hanging on the string. That's not their priority. And they should not. They should stay as far away from those messages as possible, because when your life is on the string, you can't worry about that. That can't be, buying seeds can't be your priority when you about to die, when you making sure you're gonna live to see the next day. Buying some seeds cannot be your priority. And I mean, I've been in the hospital this year. I say as far away from those messages as I can, because when you're in the hospital, then you got to make sure things get paid. You got to make sure that you come back up, get your money back. The last thing you need to look at is somebody planting those seeds, saying that you need to stock up. I'm tired of, I get stocking up. But what about and since 2020, it's been a lot of people that's been evicted from their apartments. There's been a lot of people that didn't have their jobs. And for those kind of situations, I hate that message. If you're evicted and you trying to look for a place to stay, why are you worried about stocking up on food and you don't even know where you're gonna lay your head? So I hate that message, because people who constantly want to plant that, for me, I don't think they really struggled like that, or else they like, do you know what it's really like to not know if you're going to have a place to stay in the next month? The last thing I'm worried about is a bunch of seeds, because where am I going to plant it? Like, when people say that, I don't think they realize what it's really like to have that type of struggle. Okay? And I get so annoyed with that message, because I've been in a situation where I might not have had 2 nickels to rub together. And that kind of message telling me to stock up on a bunch of food when I'm just making sure I have something to eat the next day, when I'm just trying to get everything I can get and save up my money and get the most important food I can get. You know, because when you ain't got no money, you get the food that's most important, not no junk food. You get what's most important. Okay? It's almost like when you broke, you get more nutritious food because you ain't got no money for no junk. You got to eat what's good for you. You know? And I hate the message of you better stock up. Like, no, stop saying that. Stop it. Well, I can't tell them to stop saying that, but I definitely stopped listening. I really detest it. I detest it, because there's so many people that cannot follow that advice, and it's like they're in a position where that can't even be a priority for them. That can't be a priority for them. When I'm in hospitals, when I'm in skilled nursing facilities, and even when I walk the streets and see people just don't have a place to stay and we can't judge their situation, that cannot be the advice that they're going to follow. That's not realistic to them. And I'm not talking about necessarily people with a mental illness that you see on the street and they go around just like, you can tell that something's going on. Like some people that we see, it's not necessarily that they fell on hard times. Like they have a real mental illness where they cannot rise above, you know, walking around with their shirt off and and stuff like, and you see like how they act. It's like they're like something else is going on with them. But then you can see others who fell on hard times. And that message can't be a priority for them, because they need to make sure they got to just find shelter. So that message can't even be a priority for them. So like I'm not completely against the message, but I'm against like that type of urgency and those seeds. When they put in that type of urgency on that message, it's the type of fear that they put in people. And when people ain't got money to be buying all this stuff, or move to, this is another one they say, move to the country, get out the city, get out of apartments. You really think all the people in the world are going to be able to do that? You really think all the people in the world are going to, who can follow that advice except maybe a couple of hundred people? Who can really follow that advice? And why would everybody move from the city to the country? If everybody moved from the city to the country, then the country will become the city and the city will become the country. I don't understand what people, I don't know what they're thinking. Because when you tell somebody to move to the country and people know where you live, they're going to bring their behinds to where you are. And then you're going to move somewhere else to get away from them. Okay, because you want the country, but if you're going to tell everybody to move to the country from the city and they know where you are because you look all relaxed and happy, they're going to come to where you are, and then it's going to be overcrowded, and then you're going to go somewhere else where you might just move to what used to be the city because everybody else moved to the country. And see how it don't make no sense to tell everybody to do one thing like that? It doesn't make sense. It cannot qualify for everybody in the world. Moving to the country cannot qualify for everybody in the world. It don't make no sense. And I really, the sense of urgency that they put on it is what's more annoying. Because it's a way of planting fear that you better do something now. You better do something now. And when they trying to light some fire under you, but at the same time, if you're in a position where right now that can't be a priority, then you got some extra fear added to you, because now you got to make sure you got to find a way to get all this money for all this advice these people giving you. And when I say you, I'm speaking in general. I'm not, you know what I mean. I'm not talking about people listening. So now it's adding extra fear because now you got other stuff that might be other life stuff that's happening that you need to get your life in order just with that. Like it's other life stuff. It's other stuff that's internal that could be going on with you where you just need to get your internal self in order. I've been focused more on getting my internal self in order more than I worry about a bunch of seeds, honestly. What's a bunch of seeds if you don't have your life in order? What is a bunch of seeds if you do not have your life in order? Buying seeds and moving to the country does not equal having your life in order because it is an internal thing. And it's another thing. That message pushes the fear of death. That type of message with that urgency is actually kind of pushing the fear of death. The only fear that you should have is dying without your mind being elevated. Because if your mind is in a certain level and you die like that, supposedly because physical death ain't really real, it's all an illusion. But when you're in a physical mindset, then you believe in a physical death because you're in a physical mindset, right? And if you die with a low consciousness that's low like that, and it's not of a higher consciousness, you're not in a higher mind, that's the only fear you should have is dying in that type of mind, because now you got to figure out how you're going to cross over. That's the only fear. But fear of not having physical things you need, it's like with all this advice they're giving you, granted it could be decent advice, but everybody can't accept that advice because everybody cannot make that a priority in their life right now. People have other things going on where they can't just keep making that type of stuff a priority. Okay, because they have other life things happening. And everybody cannot take that advice and make that a priority. Because something that's more serious could be happening to them right now. And they can't take that type of stuff and make that a priority right now. Okay, and when people put that kind of fear in you, when you got something else that you need to clear out your life, you got something that you need to clear out your mental, and you working on that, and then you got somebody else who want to put this fear in you. You better stock up, you better move to the country, you better buy some seeds. You got something in your life that you urgently need to clear out of your own personal life. Now you got some fear in you that you got to make that a priority too. But if you buy seeds with this thing attached to you, whatever it is in your life, what good is seeds if you got a bunch of negative stuff all attached to you that you need to clear out your inner world? What good is it to buy a bunch of seeds anyway? Because if you die with all them negative attachments in your inner world, that's going to hurt you more than not having food to eat. Let me tell you. Because that's going to be eternity. So I'd rather leave the physical world with a higher mind where I know I would transition easy and cross over, rather than just worry about a bunch of physical stuff and food and seeds and all this stuff. Got your mind on just getting a bunch of material stuff. I'd rather die a so-called physical mindset death. I'd rather die to the physical world and raise to have a higher mind than to just worry about a bunch of material stuff and then you die with your mind low like that. And then when you finally get out your physical body, because the physical body actually is, it traps you. It's hard to get information from higher realms with the physical body, or really a physical mindset, because the physical body ain't real. It's just that when you're low in consciousness, you believe more in the physical. The lower the consciousness is, the more you raise the consciousness, you still in the physical world, but then you realize it's an illusion. And the higher and higher, that's what you call the light body. Because you believe in less and less in the physical. I'd rather die but when you're in your light body, you already died to the physical anyway. It just, you didn't die the way we see on TV or in life, like in the hospital. You just don't die like that, but you still die to the physical world. You still died, but it's just not the way we're used to seeing. But it's still a death. I'd rather die like that. It's people that actually know how to manifest food with their minds. They know how to manifest food with their minds. Okay? I know it takes practice to get to that level. And so the purpose for me of preparing and stocking up and stuff like that is to practice that kind of stuff right there. Practice getting to that level where you don't have to depend on a material world as much, right? But right now, because there's a heavy dependency on the material world, I would get enough just to work on myself to raise up to be more of a higher being, more than just getting everything just depending on the material world like that. Because you can never buy enough for what these entities are doing. You will never stock up enough. You will never get enough. You got to get up like to 100 years worth of stuff. Like, you got to stock up like at least 100 years worth of stuff. They ain't stopping. What they're planning to do is carry people to where they're going. They're not, it's no turning back. So it's no stocking up for the next 2 years and things are going to be okay. You need to be, if you're going to stock up and go move somewhere, whichever thing is new. So stop and going to the country and just being comfortable with material stuff, but you ain't do nothing with your spirit and your mind. You're going to go where they're going anyway, because what they're doing is controlling your mind. So your mind is going to go wherever they go. The best thing to work on is your mental. Okay? Yes, stock up and be prepared. I always say that. But at the same time, do it enough to work on yourself. To give yourself time to work on yourself. Not just to have a bunch of material stuff to stock up on. right? Because it's not going to last for the next 100 years. I mean, check out the Great Depression. And what they saying, the narrative they trying to push into other people's minds. Because that's how they're going to create their reality. The more people believe it, the more it becomes physical. Because people are believing it, so it becomes physical. Okay? And so it's going to exist in the world of some people, because if they want to hold on to that reality like that, it's going to exist in their world. And in some timelines, it's already going on, honestly, because the timelines have already been created. So for some people are experiencing that in certain timelines. In certain timelines, they're not. And the people who want to push to do this and do this and do this, it could be something that's happening in their timeline, but they don't need to push that on you, because there's different timelines, there's different parallel worlds, there's different realities. You move from timeline to timeline depending on decisions you make every day in life. You move to a different timeline, you move to a different world. And so you might not be in the world where that happens right away. Maybe the world you were in last month, it could have happened on that timeline, and you did some work on yourself and moved to a different parallel world, and it ain't really happening like that as quickly on that timeline that you're currently on. People don't take all that into consideration when they want to say that, because maybe they don't know to think about that. And that's fine, but I detest. I don't detest. I don't detest the overall message of saying, okay, just save up. But what I do detest is the amount of urgency and fear that they push under it. Because when they push that sense of urgency and fear under it, they're saying it in a way that everybody's going to be in the same reality. Like everybody's going to be in the same reality. When that's not true. That's not true, because some people don't experience this. And I know that some people don't push that message because they already are aware of different worlds and different realities. And true enough, things are going on in those realities. You still might have, the pandemic and whatever. But the stuff that you keep hearing from time to time is not coming in your reality, because it's different worlds that exist. It's different timelines. And it's not to say that it still won't happen, but it's not happening as soon as you thought it would, because you're constantly moving. Okay? And the more and more and more you do the work, you just might not even see none of it, because it's all about you. But anyway, that's it. I said enough, and I will talk later.